UFC Fight Night Paris, France. Now, this isn't the most stacked card for a fight night, and not to talk of one that is held in France. In fact, the last event that was held in France, UFC Fight Night Gane versus Tuivasa, was way more stacked than this. Like, the main event had Nassourdine Imavov versus Joaquin Buckley, Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori, Cyril Gane versus Tai Tuivasa, and some, pretty nice fights below the cards. Charles Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood. I think he was on the main card as well. And some pretty good cards. This has a decent lineup. UFC Fight Night Paris 2023. But compared to the last one, no, not really. It's a decent fight night, better than most of the Apex cards that have been held recently. So I'm not even complaining at all. I was just making a comparison. I would still be looking for the fights, some fights. Like for example, Volkan Ozdemir versus Bogan Goskov. I'm not too familiar with Goskov, but Ozdemir is some guy that you can see has that potential to put his all. The guy has that potential to rise up, but he also has fallen short when it has mattered at times. But you still want to watch out and see what he can put to the game. Benoit Saint-Denis versus Thiago Moises. That should be a fun fight. Of course, the co-main event, Manon Fiorot versus Rose Namajunas. And of course, the main event, Cyril Gane versus Sergi Spivak. Now, let's get to the breakdown and predictions. The co-main events, Manon Fiorot versus Rose Namajunas. Now, Rose has a lot to make up for since her last fight, man. Probably one of the most boring fights of all time. I can argue that is hands down the most boring fight of all time. I mean, that was a terrible fight, man. I read a funny tweet somewhere where someone said, "Oh, that was the first fight they showed their niece to try to get them into MMA. The first round went through, and it was boring. First rounds are normally boring." And he was like, "Okay, no, don't worry about it. It's gonna pick up." Second round, same thing. Third round, she walked off, and since then she hasn't watched the fight. That's terrible, man. You should have shown her Wei Li versus Joanna. Now that's a fight to get into in MMA. That's one of the fights that got me obsessed with MMA for sure. But back to it. Terrible fights with Rose versus Carla Esparza. But you know what? Let's cut Rose some slack, especially now that she has, admitted that it was a boring fight. She did say, "Oh yeah, that was one of the most boring fights of all time." But then she said things like, when you get criticized with your art and your skills, you get sensitive. So she may have been too defensive pretty much initially after the fight. That's what I got from what she said. So I would give her props for some humility, because if we're being honest, Rose Namajunas, I don't even think she has a boring fight. I think that was her first and only boring fight, right? She has delivered bangers, at least from 2014 when she subbed Carla Esparza. Way before that, but just off the top of my head, from 2014 she subbed Esparza, KO'd Joanna iconically in their first fight. The second fight was a decision, but it was a good fight. KO'd got KO'd on her head, dropped on the head by Jessica Andrade. She lost that fight, but that was fun. Had a wonderful performance with Wei Li and a decent fight with Wei Li the second time. So Carla Esparza on their second fight was the first boring fight for Rose. So let's give her some slack. I do believe she's going to come in banging. She's going to come in trying to perform, trying to make up, and trying to correct her basically shit in the bed, if we're being honest. It was a terrible performance, but I think she's going to make a statement. The question now is if she pulls through and wins this fight, that she deserves to fight for the belt right away, because right now she's a strawweight, but this is about to be her first flyweight fight. I would argue that, yeah, why not? Manon Fiorot is pretty much the first runner in the flyweight division, if I'm saying that correctly. The flyweight champion is Valentina. I'm sorry, I'm so used to saying Valentina. No disrespect, Alexa Grasso. The flyweight champion is Alexa Grasso, rightfully so, and Manon Fiorot is number 3. I guess you could make an argument that Erin Blanchfield does deserve it. I would say she definitely deserves it more than anybody. Obviously, after the second fight between Alexa Grasso and Shevchenko, I would say Erin should get that next, but Erin versus Rose, that's gonna be a good fight. Manon Fiorot, now she has the potential to win this fight for sure. She's already in the weight class, wonderful momentum. I mean, she hasn't lost in the UFC. She's fought 5 times in the UFC and she's won all of them. You know, this, you can't even argue it. It's not like a 2-sided thing or split decisions. They're all unanimous. 3 unanimous decisions and 2 KOs. That's pretty good. And one thing about fighters like this, when you see they have a lot of knockouts in their record and they have that long streak of decisions, you know a knockout or a sub is coming soon. Yup, pretty much. Manon is a savage, man. She's a good striker. She's orthodox. Pretty much has all the basics in checks. I would consider her a well-rounded fighter. But for my prediction for this fight is Rose Namajunas. Rose is one of the best female fighters out there. Like I said, she did shit the bed earlier in her last fight, but I do believe she's gonna come through this time. She's gonna try to make up for that. Manon Fiorot has that potential. It's not a 100% pick, but I'm more confident in Rose to come through. But I'm not gonna be surprised if Manon pulls through. Yep, that's what I think about that. The main event: Cyril Gane versus Sergi Spivak. Speaking of shit in the bed, it was even worse for Cyril Gane, man. I mean, his last fight against Jon Jones, Cyril Gane was literally posted as the face of the new heavyweight era. We've never seen someone as dynamic as this guy. The strikes, the movements, like a lightweight. He had some submissions, just good on the feet, fantastic distance. But then he met Francis Ngannou. We all thought he was, it was like a close matchup. I remember it was like a 50-50 pick 'em fight, right? The narrative was it either ends as a knockout, which will be Ngannou winning, or a decision, which will be Gane winning, because of Gane's striking and his ability to keep that distance and punish you if you try to get close. So he had that potential of avoiding all of Francis', shots. But then Francis showed us his Ngannou Magomedov unlocked wrestling technique, which we never knew he had. Of course, because he had a torn ACL or MCL or both. His leg was jacked up, so he had to resort to wrestling. And Gane had nothing, man. Come to the fight against Jon Jones, and Jon Jones absolutely walked through him. Look, I love Cyril Gane, man. I love watching him. I still rate him as a top heavyweight. I really do still think he might touch that belt again. I think he will touch gold. I know there's going to be My prediction is a inevitable fight between Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gane. So yeah, I rate him highly. I don't want this to come off as me just looking at him as some random fighter. Nah. This is me talking as someone who was highly disappointed. Like, if Cyril Gane was going to lose against Jon Jones, at least make it a banger. Because if we're being honest, if you watch that fight again, Jon Jones didn't look good. I'm sure, ring rust and everything in the few first seconds or minutes of the fight, but he didn't look good on the feet, man. But hey, that man, the GOAT, I mean, he has to be after that. It was after that I was like, okay, yeah. Aside from all the drug things and, crazy behaviors outside of fighting and atrocities, the man is the GOAT, man. The man is the best. He came back and destroyed the so-called future of heavyweight. But hey, this is the perfect fight for Gane to make that up, man. This is the perfect fight. Sergey is a good challenge. Sergey has had, a good streak. 2 knockouts and 1 submission. He knocked out Greg Hardy, knocked out Augusto Sakai, and submitted Derek Lewis just in February. So the guy's in a good streak. He's number 7 on the heavyweight rankings right now. So it's a good fight to bounce back from a terrible performance. And, if he loses this fight, that's going to be rough, man. That's really going to be rough. I mean, Sergey ain't no punk. He's definitely gotten better. Like, it looks like he's actually put his game together. He actually has potential, don't get me wrong. Which is why I'm going to be picking Gane to, win this fight. And it's going to be an impressive win. And I think Gane should be given props if he pulls that off. Because Sergey is on a good run right now. He keeps looking good, keeps looking better in each fight. He obviously has that potential. But man, Sergey has a chance. If Sergey wins this fight, man, he's right there. He's right there at the top. He can literally wait for that. Like, he's up there. He can wait for that position, right? Cyril Gane is number 2. So it's probably going to be like Sergey versus Sergey. Sergi Spivak versus Sergei Pavlovich. I was trying to remember the other Russian's name. I was like, no, it's not Sergey. And I was like, wait, it is Sergey. Yeah. But yeah, I'm picking Gane for this fight, man. Gane does have a lot to make up for. So the co-main event and the main event will pretty much be the fighters who have things to make up for. Huge things to make up for versus fighters who, if they make a decent win, honestly, it doesn't even have to be crazy. If they make a decent win against these opponents, come on, either one more fight or title shot contention. See you guys in the next video.